Today we are going to take a look at the dark side of Nike, exploring its modest origins, the backlash it faces, and the outside pressures that put Nike's reputation to the test. Chapter 1. Humble Beginnings. Nike kicked off in 1964 under the name Blue Ribbon Sports, thanks to Bill Bowerman and Phil Knight. At first, they were just distributing shoes for a Japanese brand called Onitsuka Tiger. In 1971, they rebranded to Nike, named after the Greek goddess of victory, and quickly made a name for themselves in the athletic shoe scene. By the 1980s, Nike was everywhere, largely due to clever marketing and endorsements from sports icons like Michael Jordan. But this rapid success came with a catch. They started outsourcing production to countries with lower labor costs. By the late 80s, Nike was shifting its manufacturing to places like Indonesia, Vietnam, and China, which helped them stay competitive, but also led to some serious labor issues. In those early days, Nike was all about performance and innovation, rolling out cool tech like the air cushioning system. These innovations not only won over athletes, but also helped cement Nike's reputation as a top player in the sports world. However, as their profits skyrocketed, so did the criticism of their labor practices. Chapter 2. Criticisms and Controversies. In the 1990s, Nike found itself in hot water over its labor practices when reports surfaced about the terrible working conditions in its factories. Activist Jeff Ballinger dropped a bombshell in 1991, revealing that workers in Indonesia were earning as little as 14 cents an hour, which was hardly enough to survive. This shocking news led to a wave of public anger and protests, including a significant demonstration at the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. The situation escalated further, with a 1996 Life magazine article showcasing a young boy named Tariq, who was allegedly stitching Nike footballs for just 60 cents a day. This image became a powerful symbol of Nike's use of child labor. Although Nike initially denied the claims, they eventually had to face the truth about their labor practices. By 1998, with sales dropping and public scrutiny mounting, then CEO Phil Knight admitted to the harsh conditions in their factories. In light of the backlash, Nike started making changes, rolling out a code of conduct for their suppliers that set minimum labor standards, including bans on child labor and forced overtime. Chapter 3. External Threats. As Nike dealt with its damaged reputation, it encountered outside challenges that made things even tougher. In 2020, a report surfaced claiming that the Chinese government was allegedly coercing Uyghur women to work in Nike factories. This shocking news raised big questions about the reliability of Nike's supply chain and its dedication to ethical labor standards. Critics pointed out that Nike's earlier audits missed these serious issues, leading to doubts about the company's promises of change. On top of that, the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, introduced in the US, has added more pressure on companies like Nike to ensure their supply chains are free from forced labor. With public awareness on the rise, Nike has to find a way to balance keeping its market edge while tackling the ethical concerns surrounding its production methods. Besides the external legal pressures, social media has turned into a major weapon for activists. Movements like Han Boycott Nike have gained momentum, encouraging shoppers to think twice before buying. The growth of platforms like Instagram and Twitter has empowered people to share their stories, giving a louder voice to those impacted by Nike's labor practices. This change in consumer attitudes has pushed Nike to be more open and responsive to public worries. Chapter 4. The Hidden Reality Behind the Swoosh. Even with its attempts to enhance working conditions, Nike's past is still tainted by claims of worker exploitation. The brand has faced backlash for its lack of openness and the shortcomings of its oversight systems. Reports of forced overtime, wage theft, and hazardous work environments keep popping up, showing that there are still major issues to tackle. In light of the growing criticism, Nike has rolled out several initiatives to polish its image. Back in 1999, they set up the Fair Labor Association, a nonprofit focused on advocating for fair labor practices. Nike also started doing regular factory inspections and released a list of its factories in 2005. However, many activists believe these steps fall short and that Nike needs to step up its game to truly protect its workers. The company's push for corporate social responsibility has been a mixed bag. While they've made progress in tackling labor concerns, the label of a sweatshop brand still sticks. The view of Nike as a company that profits at the expense of its workers continues to challenge its reputation, especially among consumers who care about social issues. Recently, Nike has been in the news for its sustainability efforts, like the Move to Zero campaign aimed at cutting down carbon emissions and waste. While these initiatives are praiseworthy, critics argue they shouldn't distract from the ongoing labor problems within the company. The big question is, can a brand really be sustainable if its workers aren't treated right? Chapter 5. The aftermath of the scandal. The repercussions of Nike's sweatshop scandal have left a mark on both the company and the entire industry. Back in the late 90s, public protests and boycotts pushed Nike to rethink how it does business. This led the brand to take the lead in promoting ethical manufacturing, setting benchmarks that many of its rivals have struggled to achieve. But the big question is, has Nike really turned over a new leaf? Or is it just putting on a show? While they've poured money into bettering labor conditions, reports of ongoing issues indicate that the path to truly ethical production is still a work in progress. As consumers, we have the power to shape how companies act. By choosing to back brands that focus on ethical practices, we send a clear message that we care about the people making our products. If we demand more transparency and accountability, we can help build a fairer global economy. Chapter 6. Nike's response and reforms. With criticism piling up and the public demanding change, Nike realized it had to step up its game regarding labor practices and its overall image. The company rolled out a bunch of reforms to create a more ethical manufacturing process. A key move was the introduction of the Nike Code of Conduct in the late 90s, which laid out rules for suppliers about worker rights, safety, and pay. This code made it clear that child labor and forced labor were off the table and that safe working conditions were a must. Still, some critics pointed out that just having a code isn't enough. Real enforcement and accountability are what really matter. To boost transparency, Nike started doing regular factory audits and brought in third-party groups to check if they were sticking to labor standards. In 2005, they made a big move by publicly sharing the names and locations of their factories, which many saw as a way to respond to calls for more accountability. This push for transparency aimed to give consumers and activists the power to hold Nike responsible for its practices. Next time you put on your sneakers, keep in mind that each pair has its own tale of hardship and strength. Let's keep questioning the brands we choose and push for a world where ethical practices are standard, not just a rarity. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. What's your take on Nike's journey? Is it enough? Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Behind the Brand. If you liked this exploration, check out our latest videos popping up on the screen now. Make sure to subscribe so you're always in the loop with the biggest brand stories. Catch you in the next one.